Hey everybody, welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Now, I wasn't gonna do a video today, but I got a bunch of parts in, and I wanna make sure that I'm very clear about what parts you need to do an S54 swap. A donor car is the best way to go. You can pull off all the parts off of that, but what parts do you need afterwards? Now, a lot of what I've been ordering is preventive maintenance so that I can fix things on the motor while it's out of the car, because it's easier to replace these things while it's out. Like, you don't want to move the engine over and then go, oh, I should have done transmission mounts or engine mounts. Well, you should have done that while everything was out, because then it's really easy to do. So I'm going to continue to give the entire list of everything that I did, and then when you go to do your S54 swap into whatever vehicle you're doing, then you can pick and choose kind of what you're thinking you want to do. So obviously everything that I've been buying for this car will be linked in the description below. So we just got 2 more boxes from ECS Tuning. This is where I've been getting the majority of my parts from. So let's start with the smaller box. And I roughly know what's in these. I have a guy at ECS Tuning that helps me go through the S54 and pick out a bunch of parts that he knows are common to go bad, or things that I should be fixing while it's out of the car. He knows the S54 a lot better than I do. Like we've said several times, this is the first S54 I've ever worked on, and we're not just doing some simple stuff to it, we're pulling it out of the car and doing a bunch of maintenance to it. So let's start with a smaller box. We'll go through all the parts that we got today, and then we'll give a quick overview of what's going on, kind of an update with the car, and then I believe in the next video we'll probably be doing the rod bearings. So we have some transmission mounts here. These are all just OEM replacement ones. Nothing is really gonna be, like, we're not doing any like solid mounts or anything like that. Most of the parts that we're doing on this engine are just to get the engine back to what it was originally. AC belt, then we have our steering end link boots, a replacement vacuum hose. This is actually a CSL part. This is a crankcase vent hose, and I guess the OEM M3 hose is a little bit different than this. This is what it had on there, so somebody has been in this car a little bit upgrading some parts, so I don't know much about that. That's just what my guy told me. A new clutch fork, because ours was wearing out. This is another vent hose. This goes from the crankcase to the bottom of the intake manifold. Replacement power steering lines, the other boot for the steering. Then in this bag we have the pivot pin and the new rag joint, the steering guibo. So the pivot pin, we'll go over that real quick. I just got the OEM, the plastic one. A lot of people, when they pull them apart, they will inspect that pin and it'll be broken or something like that. This is the first car I've pulled apart where the stock pin was broken. Now this has about 150,000 miles on it. So for me, those pins probably last anywhere between 8 to 15 years. I probably shouldn't say years, because it goes by mileage. Obviously a car can sit for decades and that probably won't break down really. But mileage wise, those pins last about 120 to 150,000 miles. So I would assume that the pin on this car broke fairly recently. Based on the clutch fork that I saw, it either broke when I was removing the transmission or it has broken just recently. So when you're doing a clutch on a BMW and you look at it and you go, okay, well, I don't really want to replace the pin. If you're just doing a stock clutch, just go with the plastic pin. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's gonna last about the same as the clutch. By the time the pin breaks, the clutch is about time to go anyways, and then you're pulling the whole system out and replacing the fork, the pin, and the clutch anyways. If you are doing an upgraded clutch like I did on my race car, those plastic pins will wear down, and we did a video on this. I will link it up here in a card where we talked about what pin you should use when you use a performance clutch. I ended up going with a stainless steel pin because the brass ones kept breaking down on me, but I have a very, very aggressive clutch on the race car. So continuing on, we have a UUC transmission mount. Now these are a little bit upgraded, but it's basically a stock replacement. There's nothing, these aren't like super crazy or anything like that. Then we have our flex disc. So this goes in between the transmission and the drive shaft. And then in this power steering reservoir. Now, if you don't know this already, these are actually filters as well. So when you're going through and these are leaking really bad, which they all end up doing, it's not a bad idea to replace them. If you're careful about draining them and not getting it all over the floor, it's really not that difficult to do. And I think these are like 10, 15 bucks. So it's actually not just a reservoir, it's a filter as well. So it's a good idea to keep an eye and keep up with the maintenance on those. Then here is one of our tie rods, an air filter. So that's what's in the first box, is all this here. So let's get this all packed back away and we'll open up the big box. All right, so in this box we have cabin air filter. So this is another thing that is oftentimes looked over on these E46s and probably other cars as well. They actually have a cabin filter. So if your car is smelling weird when you're running AC or, well, heat, both, I think it probably will show itself more so when you're running heat. But if you're getting a funny smell and it's not like an actual mechanical smell like burnt oil or like coolant or something like that, where there's actually something wrong with the car, if it just smells really bad, it's probably this. These aren't that expensive. We're gonna be replacing this. Okay, and the next thing is an ECS Tuning Banner. So we got an ECS Tuning Banner. We really appreciate that. Next in the box is a valve cover gasket. Now ours was leaking pretty bad, so you'll want to replace that if yours is leaking as well. And then we are on to some heavier stuff. So we have here a replacement dual mass flywheel. Now again, we're just going with a stock system, nothing too crazy, just something that'll last the car another 100 to 150,000 miles. We have our other tie rod end, and then we have a right and left end links. So these are the suspension end links. Now I am gonna be moving over the roll bar from the M3 to the non-M wagon. I'm gonna move over as many performance parts as I possibly can think of. And it's weird that there's two different roll bars and there's two different end links as far as I could tell. And they're all interchangeable as long as you're using the right mounts. They're all interchangeable and all the end links are interchangeable. So I'm not quite sure what combinations are best, but I have basically replacement end links, standard size for the M3, and then we're moving the bar over. So hopefully that all works out. It didn't seem to matter which ones we used. It said that we could use either. So we're crossing our fingers. These are not very expensive. I think these are about 15 bucks a piece. So, and you can buy really nice ones. There's a lot of upgrades and options for this. So we just went with Miley. These are a really good replacement. In fact, it says right here, it's better than OE. So we're just trying to get the car back to an OE performance level. So if this is a little bit better, then I'm not gonna complain. So again, I will have everything linked in the description below. If you're interested or curious about buying any of these parts, that's where you will find them, and I will do my best to label them individually. I used to put up shopping carts full of everything, and the shopping carts would expire and stuff like that. So everything will be linked in the description below, including the list from last order that we did. So that the first and second list from both videos, whether you watch the other one or not, will be in the description of this video. So let's package this up real quick, and then I kind of want to just go over the engine and show what we're doing. And then when we're all done with this process, I'm gonna make another video where we just talk about exactly what you need to do and exactly what I did, because obviously there's two different lists. If you're just gonna put this straight in there as cheaply as possible without doing anything else, there's a lot of things here that you won't need. I'm doing my best to make sure that this is back to stock and reliable for another 15 years and about 150,000 miles. So here is the mighty S54 engine. You can see there's a bunch of painter's tape all over the wiring. So those are all labeled so that you don't get confused when I go to put this back together. What's nice about BMW engines oftentimes is there's really no other place for them to plug into. There's different size of plugs and there's different lengths. So like this one here, there's no other place it can really plug into. So it goes right there, which is pretty nice, but I still label everything so that I don't get confused, because that would be very bad to get lost. And a lot of wiring diagrams online aren't very specific or are difficult to read. So I always label them. And then over here you can see the valve cover is off. I just pulled that off. We're gonna be checking the Vano system, make sure that the gasket set that I bought, I'm hoping that stage 1 rebuild kit is sufficient. Make sure that we got the Vano system put back together properly and it's maintained so that we don't have any other problems, and that hopefully that gear that's in there isn't broken. So once we're done with the Banner system and the new valve cover gasket. We're going to be flipping the engine upside down. I'm going to have help to do that because this is very top heavy. So once it starts going, it can actually flip itself over. So you'll want to make sure you've got somebody with you. We're pulling the oil pan off. I do have a new oil pan gasket, and then we're going to be doing the rod bearings. I am not very excited about that, but it is something that we need to do. And I want to make kind of a comprehensive video on it so that if somebody else is doing this, they can get it done. This was a recall by a BMW, but a lot of cars didn't get it. So if this car did end up going through the recall, which we didn't see in its history, we'll just replace the bearings anyways. If it didn't get it, then we are saving this engine from completely getting destroyed due to the weak bearings installed when it was first built. So thanks everybody so much for watching. I'm going to continue to give updates and show the important parts that I think need to be shown in more detail. If you enjoyed today's content, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. If you have any other comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I do my best to reply to everybody's comments. If you are interested in supporting the channel beyond just giving the video a like, head over to our Patreon where we offer early ad-free access of our content. Also check out our Instagram link where we sell shirts and stickers. Thanks again so much everybody for watching, and we will see you in the next video.